Cabinet chaos? No budget? Seriously? No need for a pipeline? Elections Canada headed to court, and Trump making deals. And all that and more on the Really Big Show. And there's lots today. So much to talk about. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. In the bottom square of Hollywood Squares, we have Ian Burns, our managing editor, all the way in the nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan, 9 degrees right now, sun shining, and traffic flowing. How's it look in our nation's capital other than the chaos that's going on there?
It's very overcast, but it's warm again. So it's one of those days where it's cloudy but sort of humid. Not my favorite kind of weather.
There you go. Lots to talk about today, though. Holy moly, right? Holy moly.
Busy indeed.
Busy
cabinet
indeed.
Chaos.
Cabinet chaos. We got a clip here. I'm going to play this clip here, first of all.
No sound on that for me.
As we look to build out this economy, it's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements, notre engagement pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Thank you very much.
So do you get sound the second time?
Yeah.
There you go.
An all-important sound.
Does that remind you of Donald Trump?
It certainly reminds me of a presidential political system, which is not something that we have in this country.
Yeah, so we got this other thing here, and this is from Brian Lilly, and he's saying, we know this too, that he's signing something that is, again, those fake things to make it look like Donald Trump. If he's going to mimic Donald Trump, at least get the big black Sharpie, at least, right? Instead of this squeaky little pen there. Is he mini Trump? He treats reporters no different than Trump, and now he's doing these executive orders? Like, what is that? That's the first time I've ever seen that in Canadian politics.
Well, it's the second time I've ever seen it because he did it for the carbon tax.
He did it twice. He did it twice, but no time ever have we seen this. And we got another clip. Let's show this second clip here just to show you what we're talking about. Let's play this second clip.
So this is January 6th,
leading to over $800 of savings for two-income households. We're acting today on that so that by July 1st, as promised, that middle-class tax cut that will reduce taxes for the 22 million Canadians who pay federal income taxes, that tax cut will take into effect. We're acting on affordability as we look to build out this economy. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements.
We hope they come out tonight.
Pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes.
See, I'm going to say the Sharpie is much more effective, right? Like
Donald Trump's signature as well is a lot more impressive, isn't it? With all the jaggedy lines.
What is going on? Like, here's a guy that ran saying that that Donald Trump and the Americans are the evil empire. And here he is mimicking the same thing, and even has like the people clapping just like Donald Trump has in his, he does it in the Oval Office. And all. That's not how Canadian politics are done.
No. And I feel like it's just yet another kind of insidious influence, isn't it, from the United States, which has infected so many aspects of Canadian culture, but also British and European cultures have also been affected by it. But I think the election as well was very, very presidential, wasn't it? It was like Carney or Poilievre. I mean, the Carney campaign and the Poilievre campaign, but I mean, since Carney won, we'll talk about him. It completely centered the entire Liberal campaign on this one man. Everything was about Mark Carney. Even in the platform, it was like Mark Carney's platform to, save Canada. And then the Liberal ministers, who we'll talk about it soon, the chaos that they've unleashed because they've finally been unleashed. So they're going crazy in the press. But like during the election, where were they? No. Where was Melanie Jolie? Where was Stephen Guilbeault? Where was Chrystia Freeland? They were all locked away in some basement somewhere, weren't they? And that is an extremely unusual thing to see happen in the Westminster system, because obviously it's not about the Prime Minister. We have to remember, let's be conscious of this. To get rid of Donald Trump, they need to impeach him, and that needs to go through this. It needs to go through the Senate. It needs to go through the House of Representatives. It's a really difficult thing to do, to impeach a president and get rid of them. In the case of Mark Carney, the Liberal MPs just have to revolt. They can stick the knife in him pretty quickly, and he's gone. And then what do we have? Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland? But nobody voted for that. We voted for Mark Carney, or the country voted for Mark Carney, and yet I don't think people are aware that his name is not written anywhere in the laws or anything like that. It's not like Mark Carney is the winner of the 2025 federal election. The Liberal Party is the winner. It's the party, not the man. Whereas in the US, it's Donald Trump. He was elected for that 4-year term. That's etched in stone. It's his name. It's Donald J. Trump. And that's what you vote for. You put your X next to his name, or Kamala Harris or whatever. So I just think it's a little bit odd. And just one word on Polyev, because they have done the exact same thing, the Tories. And straight away my eyebrows were raised a few years ago when Pierre Polyev announced that he wanted to be the leader. And he came out and he said, "Here's why I'm running to be Prime Minister of Canada." And I just thought, what are you on about? What are you talking about? That's not how it works in Canada. It's not how it works in the Westminster system. You're running to be the leader of a party that hopes to be elected, in which case you would become the Prime Minister, but you're not supposed to talk about it like you're running to be the president. And I just think from the Carney people, it's obviously Katie Telford or whatever, or someone else that they've brought in to advise them. They obviously think that this is necessary because, well, number one, they have a minority government, so there's no guarantee that any of this is actually going to happen, including this order, which he signed, a meaningless piece of paper. There's no guarantee that any of this is going to actually pass. And even if it did, it would take time, and it takes compromise, and lots of people have to weigh in. It's not like the American system where the president can just slap down an order and things change. So I think maybe it's an attempt to try and say, look, we're doing stuff. And this is how quickly things change when you elect a Liberal government, kind of thing, even though that is not reality. That's very, very misleading.
So why do you think that he's doing it this way? Because nobody's ever done it before. It's obviously the American influence. They watch it on TV and they think it's a message of power, and so they're kind of copying that power. But at the same breath, they say we need the CBC to have our own culture. But obviously, they're being influenced by American media, because this is a dog and pony show in Canada here. This is not. He's not signing anything that is binding or legal. It's absolutely just trying to mimic what Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, but it's an attempt to say. Look, we're doing stuff, rather than the reality of the Westminster system, especially when you have a minority government. They don't want to admit this. Clearly, they're very embarrassed about this, and they want to keep it under wraps. But minority governments aren't powerful. They're very, very weak. And theoretically, this Liberal government could collapse, not in a few months. That could happen because it's so fragile. They don't have a majority. They can't even pass legislation. So in a sense, Mark Carney is a bit of a lame duck, but he's trying to present himself as in command. And that's probably for an international audience as well, I think. That's probably for Trump and the Americans to try and fool them into thinking that he actually has control and power.
The signing thing got a lot of pushback out there from a lot of Canadians. Not a lot of pushback from CBC, because they should be asking that question, like, what is going on? But I don't know. Carney is also on that. We talked about it yesterday on the British interview there, where he got called out. Well, actually, he called out Trump or Britain for visiting for the Trump visit to Britain. Actually, the other way around, where he got invited. And so this is Carney gets criticized as Britain's invitation to Trump for that second state visit. And it's a direct invite from the King, who is coming to Canada in a few days, so he can take it up with the King, I guess. Yeah. And then coming to town here in Kelowna here, actually, the chief economist of BDC there says that Canada needs its own oil and gas pipelines. And we're going to talk about it later, where Stephen Guilbeault says we don't need any pipelines, we're at peak oil. And the pipeline, as he had the numbers wrong too, he said the pipeline is at 40%, which is not correct. But Steve McDonald, reporter, did this story.
He's got his own numbers.
What's that?
He's got his own numbers, apparently. But who would have thought, right? Canada's biggest export represents about 25% of our exports. And it's also something that other countries can't take away. Like, for example, the second biggest export, which is cars. And we're seeing that being taken away from us right now. Can't take away oil and gas. And it represents, I mean, it's the bedrock of the Canadian economy. It's the bedrock of our prosperity, even though it might not represent that much of GDP when you look at it like that. In terms of exports, the loonie is completely dependent on it. You can't separate oil and gas from the Canadian dollar. They are basically the same thing, aren't they? So who would have thought? I mean, what madman would have thought that we might need more of that thing that undergirds our prosperity and our entire society here in Canada? Chief economist. I mean, you don't have to ask a chief economist. You could ask a chief parking attendant, and he'd probably know that. But yeah, of course,
so
not Stephen Guilbeault.
Pierre Clareau, he's actually the chief economist for the Crown Corporation, so it's government, of the Business Development Bank of Canada. And he said we need to reduce trade barriers inside Canada, which is like a no-brainer. Wonder why it hasn't been done a long time ago. But we need pipelines, right? We need pipelines, we need pipelines, we need pipelines.
But it's the same reason. The reason the pipelines haven't been built and the reason that internal trade is still hard, it's the same cause. Special interest groups. Little groups of people that want to keep their very cozy arrangement that they have, whatever that may be, like the various sort of colleges that pretend to keep people safe by harassing professionals in their provinces. They don't want to give that up. And also people that get certain manufacturers, people that make beer and stuff like that, or wine, they don't want to lose their privileges, do they? That's why the internal trade is buggered. And then with the pipelines, it's just other special interest groups like these environmental fanatics.
It's just amazing. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. And a pipeline is generally believed to be the best way to get Canada's biggest resource to both domestic markets and to the coast for exporting. It would reduce our reliance on the U.S. and bring Canada more prosperity. I mean, these are just basic common sense things. But when you listen to Guilbeault, like we had it yesterday, and we might even talk about it a little bit more later on, he says the opposite. And Carney talks about carbon credits and all these things that just get in the way of this. And we have home sales across the country are slowing because people are getting careful with their money. Investment in Canada is falling. We have, I think he's projecting growth in Canada for next year at 0.8%, right? So.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so not good, right? So if you want to read that story, you can go to kelownanow.com. You can read that full story here. And here we have Stephen Guilbeault. This is Kevin Vickers put out this post. Stephen Guilbeault was incorrect in saying TMX is only operating at 40%. And if he truly believes oil will hit peak oil in 2029, he's totally incompetent. Yeah, I mean, how many times throughout history, and I'm going to do an editorial on it here later today, how many times have people called peak oil since the 70s? How many times?
Far too many times for anybody to come out with a statement like Guilbeault's.
And apparently Guilbeault knows more than most people. And this is the same group of people that said gold was an antiquated asset. When Canada sold all its gold, Canada has no gold reserves. And looks like they were wrong on gold as well. And looks like they're going to be wrong.
You say gold and oil, right? That's two things. What have they been right about? I think that would be more. You cut to the chase a lot quicker there if you answered that question, because they've basically been wrong about everything. Everything that's happened in the last 30 years. People like Stephen Guilbeault have been wrong about it. But we're supposed to sit here and listen to him, as if he's some sort of wizard that understands the ways of the world. Just like the rest of the Liberal cabinet, all of them have been wrong about basically everything for decades. And we're supposed to listen to them and take them seriously. It's pretty hard to do that.
Our friend of the show, Chrystia Freeland, said they spent the last 10 years on virtue signaling and identity politics. So I guess if that's where you spend your energy, and that's a common thing. Where you spend your energy is the results you get. And they have not spent their energy on the economy.
Well, Melanie Jolie on CBC yesterday. I mean, I recommend people watch that just for the amusement of seeing this woman just backtrack on everything that she said for the last 10 years or whatever. But she was like, it was so patronizing as well, where she's like, people want to be able to afford groceries and the essentials of life. And then they even want like a little bit left over at the end. They want that too. It's like insufferable. But also talking about the economy, and it's like our priority is the economy. It's all about the economy. Okay, good for you. Could have said that 5 years ago, but alas, there were other priorities then.
We got this clip here from one of the mess from yesterday. Anita Anand, one of the favored liberals, had this to say yesterday.
Blocking food and aid to Gaza. What do you think of that decision? And is the Canadian government doing anything to stop that?
We cannot allow the continued use of food as a political tool. The Prime Minister has been very clear about that. Over 50,000 people have died as a result of the aggression caused against the Palestinian and the Gazan people in Palestine. And using food as a political tool is simply unacceptable. And we need to continue to work towards a ceasefire. We need to ensure that we have a two-state solution, and Canada will continue to maintain that position.
Yeah, there was quite
it's
a
like
reaction.
listening. It's like listening to somebody. It's like listening to somebody talk about the glories of steam power in the 1980s or something. It's like, what? How out of date? Like this is Canada's chief diplomat, and she's talking. She's at least 50 years out of date, I would say, talking about two-state solution. I mean, on all the rest of it. Like, for God's sake, man, just go to some conferences, go and do some reading about the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm just again, Anita Anand, the glorious Anita Anand, who's supposedly got some sort of like 5,000 IQ, gigantic brain and all the rest of it. I just, I have to hang my head.
Why aren't they there with Trump in the Middle East tour, where he's actually lifted sanctions against Syria and is trying to broker a deal with, sounds like they're close with Iran, and then pressure is on the Abraham Accords. And, there's lots of talk out there that he may get the Nobel Peace Prize.
But I think the missing piece of that puzzle.
Where's that coming from?
Vasi, shut up, Vasi. It's not your turn yet.
No, I don't know.
Like, in general, and this also applies to Carney and Carney's discussions on this subject. Well, first of all, let me say, just to clear my throat, Canada should just shut up about this in general anyway. Canada can't do anything about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's never going to be able to do anything. Just shut up about it. That's what I would say. Shut up. Go and do something useful with your time, rather than talk about an intractable conflict that you don't even understand. You don't even know the first thing about it. Just shut up. Go and try and improve relations with the Americans or something like that. Like, do something useful with your time. But worse than that, and well, not worse than that, but alongside that, it's just this out-of-date idea. Like, this is why the Americans are actually kind of doing something a little bit. It's why things maybe are changing a little bit, because this American administration has recognized certain things about that conflict. It's updated itself a little bit, updated its knowledge, because it's not the same conflict that it was even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. It's different now. There are many, many different factors. And you're talking about Trump in Saudi Arabia and all the rest of it. That's pretty important. Like, Israel and Saudi Arabia have pretty good relations now. Like, you would never think that, would you, based on the way that Anand and Carney and the rest of the Liberal Party speak about that conflict? Like, a lot of Sunni Arab countries in the Middle East are actually quite favorable towards Israel because they see Israel as an important opponent to resist Iran. But then we also have Hamas, and not just Hamas, but we have the Palestinian Authority there. The rest of the Arab world, and even to an extent the Islamic world, are sick of those organizations. They're sick of it. They're sick of this endless battle, this endless war, and they want to get rich like the Gulf states have done.
I think,
but I'm wasting my breath, aren't I? Because Anita Anand, Mark Carney, Jolie, when she was on this file, they just come out with, they just talk as if it's like 1975 or something like that. It's just like, what are you supposed to do in the face of that kind of ignorance? I don't know.
And even the CNN and the rest of them are actually having trouble criticizing, the person they always want to criticize, Trump. If he accomplishes what looks like is going to get accomplished in the Middle East, it'll be, they're talking about make money, not war, and talking about prosperity. His speeches were pretty good. People should watch them for what they're talking about. And Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Qatar actually helped fund some of the stuff with Hamas and that. And now they're talking like they want to all do peace. I mean, that olive branch that was extended to Syria is very, very important. And the olive branch that is extended towards Iran as well. Like Iran has two choices: stop with nuclear weapons, and then you can have prosperity. And then those two things are just amazing. Two things. There's so many things going on there.
Well, I mean, that speech was quite interesting. Trump's speech in, I think it was in Saudi Arabia. I can't remember where it was now. It might have been when he was in Qatar. But the speech was quite interesting when he started to talk about the failures of neoliberalism and basically talking about like George Bush and the rest of them.
That was Saudi Arabia.
Thought that they could go, Saudi Arabia, who thought that they could go into the Middle East, for example, Iraq, a country that they didn't understand, as he said, which is completely true. Go into that country and then kind of impose the European, the European style democratic system, as if that was going to work. I mean, for God's sake, again, talk about people that have been wrong for like 30 years. God's sake, the neocons, what a set of losers they were. But I mean, he's just gone in there and he's completely smashed what had been orthodoxy in American foreign policy for many years. And I think, they love that, don't they? That's what they want to hear. It's like, they're not going to come over there and proselytize with their religion. They're going to go over there and try and do business with them. And that's what they've always wanted, pretty much.
And again, if you think about people with something to lose, do you think they want to go to war in Abu Dhabi and places like that where they have like one of the most magnificent cities in the world? They don't want war. It's when people have something to lose that, they're more prone to diplomacy and stuff like that. So opening up the Middle East to prosperity is likely the best solution. And then people that are ignoring it, that are people that are even in the comments here that are trying to say that, trying to be negative about it, should just go and watch all the stuff. Trump, I think he inked deals for $2.2 trillion. And I think the total in his, 3 months that he's been in office is over $10 trillion. And that's in big companies. There's probably lots of small stuff coming in. Canada's not inking any deals. They need to get past the identity politics, the virtue signaling, and get down to the one thing we have, that's resources, and start making things happen as far as our resources go.
Yeah, well, that's what Trump's done, hasn't he? He's removed that kind of moral lecture, the moral lecture aspect of American foreign policy. He's just removed it entirely, and he's never really argued any of those points, so it's okay for him to do that. It's a little bit harder for somebody like Barack Obama to do that, because all of his speeches and all of his chat is all about the human rights and international law and all these things that generally were sort of orthodoxy in America for a long time, whereas Trump's never believed in any of that. So he kind of has a free hand to go into the Middle East and do deals with jihadi psychopaths like the illegitimate leader of Syria, for example, or these authoritarian people like the Sheikh in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. He can do that because that's Trump. But it's a bit harder for the sanctimonious side to do that, isn't it? And not just side. I mean, it'd also be hard for George Bush to do something like that, obviously.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because the Liberals embraced the Syrian leader when he took power. And now it'll be interesting to see now that Donald Trump has shaken hands with the Syrian leader, what their reaction will be to the lifting of sanctions with Syria.
Mm-hmm.
We got another cabinet. Mark Carney appointed his former art dealer to cabinet in AI, one of the most important industries in our future. And this is the person that has been appointed. The first time ever we have an AI minister, and it's a former CBC and CTV journalist that was fired from CBC for his art dealings with Mark Carney. His side hustle.
Yeah, well, all is forgiven when it comes to politics, isn't it? You can get away with just about anything.
And if you draw a comparison to the person in charge of AI, responsible for AI in the United States, and the person responsible for AI in Canada, you have to wonder what we're doing in AI. And then if you look at the companies, obviously, I was just in Silicon Valley there, the kind of like the hotbed for AI in the world. And I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. This guy actually was fired from CBC and then was working for Eurasia Group, where Mark Carney's wife works, and also where Gerald Butts is the vice president. So very, very close ties. And you said it before on the liberal elite, all the people that were close to Justin Trudeau, too, and the same group is still in there. They're all boyhood chums and everything. So definitely not the most qualified people, but the most connected people.
Indeed. Although Mark Miller's out. Sure, he's not happy about that, but maybe he's still contributing from the sidelines.
Yeah. And this one is the one that's got lots of attention, and this is, we're going to play the clip first on Finance Minister Champagne.
But I think the missing piece of that puzzle is, will you actually do it? And how are you going to pay for it? And the reason so for example, for the fall economic statement, I take your point that it's going to be more thorough. But I remember your predecessor, Chrystia Freeland, instructing us many times, this is not a mini budget. This is just an update on where finances are concerned. And I'll point to, for example, other things that have happened with your government in the past, where you've made a promise to cut consultants and instead the spending on consultants has gone up 13%. Like, how are we as Canadians to hold your government accountable for what you're promising if you're not going to be transparent about it for 6 months or so? And I take your point about the timeline. Throne speech. There's still another month.
And I would say this is a new government. So let's start, if we're going to start, this is a new government, new legislature, new prime minister. So the direction is very clear. He's being
But you're still the finance minister.
Yeah, I'm still the finance minister. And I would say the world has changed also in 6 weeks. So Canadians understand that. And my objective to them is to provide them the best picture of the financial account of Canada, to be prudent. I mean, you'll hear me use that word more and more. Prudence, in a very...
What does it mean?
Well,
like
prudent is that you take as much information as you have to make sure you provide them with the best possible picture. That's why I said when we're going to come back in the fall, we're going to be in a position to provide them with a fiscal update, which are going to be substantive. And like I said, there will be no surprises because, the way normally I would agree with you that, the calendar...
There you go.
Another day, another member of the Canadian elite that doesn't know the definition of a basic word, doesn't seem to know what prudence means. Well, I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sound like a massive pessimist and a big whiner, but what are we supposed to do with these people? Well, like these rule over us, these people. And Champagne, he's just constantly got his eyebrows like in the middle of his forehead, doesn't he? He's like, oh. It's like it's almost like he's been caught stealing cookies all the time, and he's trying to explain. It's like, oh no, actually these are my cookies, and they said I could have these cookies, so I'm just being prudent.
We got this tweet here from the Senator Leo Husakas there. Let's put that up there. And this is the part. I mean, this is what I thought too. Like. Carney ran as a central banker. That was his thing. And he can't table a budget? Like that is absolutely ludicrous to me. I just don't understand how you can't table a budget. And it's basically, why are you hiding it? Like, show us where you intend to spend money. Show us where the revenue comes from. He was the one that was calling out Pierre Poilievre and talking about his budget was nonsense. Well, where's yours? Well,
hiding things seemed to work quite well for him during the election. So I assume he's emboldened now and feels like it's a pretty decent thing to do.
And then, the Champagne saying this is what Canadians want. They want this $800 for a family of two, so $400 each. This is what they want. Like, he just did it with a pen, didn't he? He just stroked it off with a pen. So let's see the budget. You must have made a budget, so why can't we see it? No? What am I... Like,
I mean, it's not a good start, is it? Let's say that anyway. The government's been in power, really, been sworn in for a couple of days, and already the scandals are cascading down, aren't they? Like a glorious waterfall. Well, so I reckon give it a few more weeks, maybe give it a few months, and it's going to break through to the Canadian public, and I think the displeasure will mount.
Is this the moment when Canadians realize they've been had? Because, you know, like when he did his you know, when he was just appointed the leader, he had a small cabinet of 23 ministers, and the people, and he's, you know, he kind of said that he's going to run a leaner, meaner cabinet, and here it is when he gets, you know, he wins the election, and it's 38.
Yeah. Well,
39. Sorry,
I mean,
I got that number wrong. 39. 39.
Is that what you're including him, including the big man?
Well, this is from Dan Elvis. We're concerned to see the 14 of Carney's 39 ministers, junior ministers, were former front benchers. Yeah, so
I think he is including the big man now, which is accurate still to do. Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's kind of typical. Look, Dan Elvis there is a conservative. If his party had won the election, they would also be going back on their promises, because it's what happens every single time. You know, I say that with almost complete certainty, because it always happens. They always say that they're going to do something when they want to be elected, and then kind of change their tune once they're in power. But I mean, it is quite. This is fundamental, isn't it? The budget. This isn't like, you know, this isn't like vague or anything like this. This is a fundamental sort of feature of Canada's political system. So to turn your back on that is quite extraordinary.
Regular watcher Ian Leslie there wants to know if that stroke of a pen was a pantomime, and he wants you to answer that question.
Yes, it was. It was politics. I'm looking at this now, and I see somebody here going on about orders in council. Those weren't orders in council. That's something quite different. It wasn't an order in council. If it was, then at least we'd have something to talk about, you know? At least it would be more than just a piece of paper, but that wasn't an order in council.
And then another cabinet minister getting a lot of attention, Sean Fraser, who was immigration minister, which was a disaster, and then housing minister, which was a disaster, both of them in crisis. And then he was taking some heat now, and he said that words don't hurt him. And he's going to do most of his job from home when he got interviewed there.
Yeah, why not, mate? Why not, eh? I suppose he has to try and make it seem like he didn't just come back into politics because the polls changed. Because his original reason was that he wanted to be with his family. So I guess this way he can say, "Oh no, I was being honest."
So when he was the Minister of Immigration in 2022, he suspended regulations to grant over 1 million foreign students unlimited access to the Canadian workforce, calling it a great day for the economy. Cabinet withdrew that order in 2024 after data showed it caused unemployment for Canadian students. Oops.
Indeed. I mean, we shouldn't.
And then in December 16th, actually, he said he was leaving politics, wanted to go home, made that decision, wanted to be with his family. And now he's saying, I think, you know, Mark Carney talked him back into coming back. And I think most of them thought they were going to lose. That's why they left. Then all of a sudden, Donald Trump played them a big favor. He became the boogeyman. They played that card very well. They played their Trump card very, very well. And it doesn't, now it looks like, you know, like that first meeting with Carney and Trump, sure doesn't look like what Carney billed it to be.
No. And even, I mean, we got a poll come through just now. It's not something that we can put up on the screen, but I mean, it's from Leisure. It came out and said that only 24% of the people that they polled think that meeting will improve relations, and 40% think it'll have no real effect, which is quite interesting to see, isn't it? So most of the largest number of people that polled, the largest group, said that it was pointless, that meeting with Trump,
well,
which is kind of what a lot of people were saying.
Yeah, no, I didn't see anything. There was nothing came out of that meeting, other than basically we were told that Trump helped Mark Carney win the election. He actually took credit.
Well,
he took credit
had
for it.
He said, digs, didn't he, Trump?
Yeah, he said, "You owe me because I basically won that election for you."
Yeah. I mean, Carney tried to say, like, look, we're not expecting anything. He tried to, like, bring expectations down, didn't he? And it was like, we're just kind of getting We're just going to kind of get used to each other and have a chat. And I suppose in that sense, that's what I expected it to be. But it was just hyped up so much, wasn't it? But then you can understand why it was hyped, because Mark Carney and his party had just won an election based on that one issue, that one single issue, over and over again, amplified to an extraordinary level. So obviously, when you go and meet them, people are going to be expecting fireworks, aren't they? They're going to expect something big. But he had nothing. Yeah, it was just a meet and greet, wasn't it?
And it looks like Canada's starting to walk back all its tough talk too. Canada's effectively, this is from National Post, suspended almost all of its retaliatory tariffs. I mean, there's still quite a few on, so we'll see how that works. Because even China and the United States have paused their tariffs. They're down to like smaller numbers, and it looks like they're trying to make a deal as well. And Canada did all that tough talk. It was Canada and China that really retaliated. Everybody else took a wait and see approach.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
This is the biggest story, I think, that's going on right now. The Terrebonne riding. The Elections Canada said it's final, and that on that one vote that was Elections Canada made the mistake. Elections Canada actually made the mistake, and they would tie and force a by-election. Here, let's play this clip here from CBC first of all.
Set to announce this morning that it is going to challenge legally the election results from the riding of Terrebonne. A judicial recount saw the Bloc candidate lose by just one vote, and yesterday Elections Canada said it would abide by the decision. Now we know what's happening next in the story, and Janice McGregor is in Ottawa with the details.
Yeah, we're in a world here, of course, where every seat does count, as the Liberals are very close but do not have a majority government. And we do have several ridings where the results are not final, are still being, subject to recount proceedings. But this one is the closest. As you say, on election night, razor thin. Then the validation process found that it was a Liberal win by one vote. Then subsequently, we had this extraordinary situation where it emerged that there was a voter who had cast a ballot, they said for the Bloc, by special ballot, and that was returned and didn't actually make it because there was a administrative error and sort of the address on the sort of ballot, that was attempting to be sent to Elections Canada was incorrect, something that was the elections agency's fault. Now, trying to see the extent to which this is unprecedented, we're not sure that it's never happened before, but certainly in my time as a parliamentary reporter, I'm hard-pressed to recall something like this happening, at least in recent memory.
There you go. I wonder what the News would be doing if that was a Conservative riding that won by one vote.
Well, I mean, this is beyond political parties, I think. This is about, like I said yesterday, this is about the health of Canada's democracy at the end of the day. This has just made a complete mockery of that particular election, and it doesn't require a lot of effort for people to make the jump from this one riding to the rest of Canada and to Elections Canada in general, and start to feel a bit sort of doubtful about the whole process. It's completely tragic, and I can't imagine that this is going to stand. I can't imagine that this will stand. I think it's the Bloc candidate has already said that she's considering all options. One would assume she's going to take it to court, but I just think Mark Carney, he's got the power, hasn't he, to get involved there. He's got the power to tell his MP to resign, and then he has the power to call a by-election, and that's what he should do, I think, because this is just ridiculous. It's completely absurd.
It's like one of those calls in a sporting game that determines a champion. You know the call was bad. It is just so bad, and it doesn't make any sense that Elections Canada would not count that ballot. This riding seems to be.
Well, they say that the rules say that all the ballots have to be in a certain physical place for them to be able to count them. And even though that's a legitimate ballot, it wasn't in that physical area of
by their own
wherever
mistake,
they were holding the ballots.
By their mistake.
Absolutely, and look, it's one vote. I mean, it's absolutely crackers, isn't it? It's insane. It's a single vote that decided this election, and then that's before that we even look at the other several hundred ballots that were rejected. Sometimes they can be challenged, the rejected ballots, because sometimes it's very very odd grounds for rejecting it, like just not slightly outside of the box or something like that. So the whole thing is just very, very iffy, and I think the only sensible thing to do is to have another election, have a rerun there, because it was too tight. We don't really know who won that election, so let's do it properly. Let's have a real one. And it would actually be, I think it would be worse if it goes to the courts and then you get a load of judges that decide. I mean, let the people decide. It's a democracy after all, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there was an open call. This is another Holly Dome Blacklock story. There was an open call for anybody that wants to kind of cross over, and then the NDP leader there, Don Davies, not happy with that. Yeah, so Cabinet yesterday said it welcomed any opposition MPs who wanted to vote with the Liberal caucus into the minority 45th Parliament. Didn't Carney said he wasn't going to go after any of the other MPs, but here it is. They just openly said anybody that wants to cross over. That's great. And then there you go. And then Don Davies not liking it. He wants to actually pass a bill saying that that's a stunning betrayal. Like people vote for the candidate to represent the party, and all of a sudden, they're trying to play this game of getting people to cross over. Not that crossing over hasn't happened, but usually it's over an issue, not just to help us get a majority.
Well, according to the system, you elect the person, not the party. That's strictly speaking how it's supposed to work, but obviously that isn't really how it works. Most people don't even know the name of or many people don't even know the name of the person that they voted for, and they'll go into the voting booth and they'll just be like, all right, where's Liberal? And then, they don't care who the person is. So it's hard. It's a hard one, that, isn't it? It's kind of like the formality and the actual reality on the ground are different, and they sort of contradict each other. So that usually, then it becomes a moral question, doesn't it? And I think it's right to phrase it in those terms, as being not sort of good behavior, not moral behavior to do that.
Usually when people cross over, it's over an issue that they have a moral question to or something, and that's what forces them to cross over. It's not usually done out of bribery and, hey, I can give you a cabinet position or something like that so that we can get a majority. That's usually not what happens. They usually make alliances with the party, as opposed to trying to bribe somebody or convince somebody to cross over to help one party get their majority.
Yeah, though often, temporal concerns come first, and then after that, they rig up some kind of moral justification. That's politics in a nutshell, isn't it, really? So yeah. I could even see some Tories doing it, and then saying, oh, I didn't like Pierre Poilievre. He was too much of he's too aggressive or something like that. I didn't like what he said. But really, it's just, that's not really what they're bothered about. They're bothered about power. We've seen that many times.
Yeah, and the food professor, who's very active on X, and he follows the price of groceries in that quite a bit. And he said, well, Canadians were busy analyzing Carney's new cabinet. The U.S. released its latest inflation numbers. And they said even despite Trump's reckless tariff strategy, food prices dropped to 2.8% lower than in Canada. And that is, I've seen those numbers, and even we talked about it yesterday. CNN, even the commentators were actually stunned and saying economists don't understand how inflation went down. And then you and I talked about it, and it's all about energy. Cheaper energy means cheaper inputs, means cheaper products. It's all about energy. And then I think it was the Qatar king that said, Amir, I guess, he said, he echoed Trump's language there in Qatar. Drill, baby, drill.
Build, baby, build, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
But I mean, the American economy is completely unique in the whole world and the whole history of the world. It's not America's not really a country. It's kind of wrong to think of it like that. It's like a continent-sized empire, isn't it? And it doesn't really rely on the world for that much. So it's kind of, whereas we rely on trade a lot more. Like most countries rely a lot on trade, but the Americans don't particularly rely on it. So yeah.
There's a few things that people need to understand about the United States of America that makes it very, very strong. Number one is its military. It's got the strongest military in the world, so it makes it like the world's policeman in many ways, and also gives it might. But that also gives it the might of the U.S. currency, because the U.S. currency is basically the world's #1 reserve currency. It's part of the SWIFT system and everything, and that alone allows it to do so much and it control other nations' economies. Most of Canadian reserves, we don't have gold, most of our Canadian reserves are in U.S. dollars. That's how strong, like you can't compare nations like Canada to the United States of America. You cannot compare what they can do, what their pull with the rest of the world. Like they can go into other parts. I mean, look at the Saudis, the Qataris, and all that stuff that are throwing themselves at Trump, hoping to become part of the prosperity that is in the United States. I mean, they don't need a lot of prosperity. I mean, they build massive cities. I mean, that place is just like rolling in money. But they want access to the AI. They want access to all the companies. Along with Trump that went on that trip was, some of the biggest and brightest minds in the world with, like the Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, Sam Altman with OpenAI, Alex Karp with Palantir, Elon Musk with Tesla, the CEO of, I don't know his name now, CEO of Boeing, the CEO of General Electric. They made a huge deal in Qatar, that huge deal in Qatar. The biggest ever deal for Boeing. And I watched the press conference with both those CEOs flanking Donald Trump and then discussing that huge deal for Boeing.
Yeah, so I would say you mentioned those Gulf states and how they don't necessarily need America. They've got, they've built lots of things. Those countries, and this is true of many other countries, including Canada, are only really possible because of the US military, which you mentioned before, because it guarantees freedom of navigation. Because, that area, that neck of the woods there in the Arabian Sea and all the rest of it, and the Red Sea, even now, there's piracy. There's lots of naughty goings on there. But imagine if the US carrier groups weren't hanging around there. You wouldn't just have pirates, you would have naval forces from countries would be going around and slapping people. But the Qataris and the Saudis and the Emiratis and all the rest of them, they've been able to export their stuff, just like the Chinese. They've been able to export their goods and commodities all around the world and make themselves extraordinarily rich, really thanks to the US Navy in particular, which sort of patrols the seas. So that's the fundamental kind of point that Trump makes a lot of the time, is kind of like, you kind of owe us, like we're your bodyguards, like we're your sort of security, and you don't pay for us.
Yeah, there's a huge base there in Qatar, and Donald Trump walked into that air base, a surprise visit, and you can go watch it on I didn't put it in here, you can go watch it on X. I mean, it was like Mick Jagger walked into a stadium. And, there's a lot of people screaming, America's back. Definitely, the U.S. military is a force that is definitely curries favor with lots of nations. I mean, it is. I mean, listen to what that English interviewer said when Mark Carney says that we help the Americans. He said, "What with your tiny military? Like, we've neglected our military so badly that you have an English journalist basically mocking the Prime Minister of Canada in an interview."
Yeah, she said, "What with your tiny military and your broken equipment?"
That they bought
quite
from
sort of strange
the UK.
Undertones to that.
That we actually bought from the UK. We bought 4 submarines in a UK garage sale.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite. I mean, Carney he set himself up to be mocked there, didn't he? Because her question was, the Americans are always going to come and help you, and then he said, yeah, and we'll always help the Americans. It's like, really? Do you think the Americans really need that? Although they did avail themselves of it, didn't they, during Afghanistan?
Yeah. Let's turn to some of the more local stuff, or I guess this is Toronto stuff. Mayor Olivia Chow is asking the federal government for financial aid amid this senseless trade war. She spent a lot of money on needless things. Now she's asking for money. She's a different character for sure.
Funny though. She's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, like they doled out so much money on wasteful things, and then now she's asking for money. Toronto, the condo market is collapsing in Toronto. They built like I think there's a 30,000 these micro condos that were built for renters. When the immigration was going crazy, and like 250 square feet to 500 square feet, and nobody wants them now.
Well, people would have them if they were priced for what they were really worth, like a couple of $100,000 or something like that. People might be interested, but they're not going to pay $700,000-800,000 for something like that, are they?
Yeah, and then you put this one here: Canadian sales unchanged in April 2025. New listings fell about 1% month over month.
Well, it's actually Korea. The way they've done that's a bit weird, actually, because if you read inside, it's a 10% decline. So April just gone, compared with April 2024, 10% decline in sales, but only a 3 or 4% decline in average prices. So it's that classic thing, like loads of people have bought high and now they're trying to sell, or maybe they've even bought low, but they want to sell high. And to them, the price should always be at least the very peak of the price that it's ever been listed as, like, so it should be the COVID price, even though we're through that now. So I think there's a lot of reluctance to sell, and obviously there's a huge reluctance to buy, particularly these condos. But they kind of talk about the tariffs as well and how that's creating an uncertainty in the Canadian economy, which is obviously true as well.
We have this clip here from Harman Bangu on the confidence vote here. So let's play this clip.
Hey guys, I got some terrible news for you. So 2 independents didn't even show up for a vote during work hours. Look around. It's light out. And we're still at work. I'm usually here up past till 10 p.m. working, putting in the time, making sure I'm fighting for British Columbians, everyone in my constituency, and British Columbians all around. And now we have 2 independents who couldn't show up to bring down the David Eby government. This was a confidence vote, folks. We fell short because we couldn't get the 2 independents to show up for their duty. I am absolutely sick of this. We need people who are going to come out here, fight for everyday British Columbians, and work the hours that you expect us to work to get things done.
I wonder why a couple of defectors who were elected on false, on a false premise, why would they not want there to be an election? Any idea on that, Jim? I don't know. Can't figure it out.
I could put some money on that, I bet.
There's no way they're ever going to vote for no confidence. They're never going to vote. Why would they do that? Why are they going to vote to be unemployed? They're certainly not going to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent, isn't it?
It is, and I wish he'd put it more clearly, because he didn't really phrase that very well. He tried to talk about himself being great, didn't he? He's like, I'm here representing British Columbia. It's like, shut up, man. Talk about the sort of broader principles here, which is, these people are obviously self-interested. They're doing it because they want the money to land in their bank account every couple of weeks, and they maybe trying to get a pension or something like that. It's got nothing to do with principles. So I think he should bash them for that rather than talk about how great he is.
We got another tweet here from Gavin Dew. He said David Eby consolidates power, demands trust at the point of a bayonet, then sings his own praises for rediscovering the economy his party has spent the last 8 years breaking.
Interesting language there from Dew. He likes to use certain terms, doesn't he? Bayonet. That's a good. You don't hear that word enough.
The tip of the spear.
BC politics.
Yeah, the tip of the spear, the bayonet.
Yeah. No, he's very active, isn't he, Gavin Dew? They've got some very active
Eleanor Sturko.
critics, haven't they? Eleanor Sturko's another one. Yeah, they actually have. They have a pretty good sort of set of critics, but they've also got some less good ones. Let's be honest.
The Alberta government amends their referendum bill in an effort to placate the First Nations concern, because that thing is kind of blowing up in their faces, right? The Alberta government made 11th-hour changes to the controversial proposed legislation declaring that no separation referendum question could threaten First Nations' existing treaty rights that did not do much to placate anybody, right? So Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation Chief Sheldon Sunshine, they were quick, and another chief were quick to release a statement saying the amendment means nothing and the proposed bill needs to be shredded. So there you go. Lots going on there.
I think that they would have. This is when things like this happen. It just, it makes you lose respect. If you had any respect at all for politicians and the political class, it makes you lose even that tiny little fragment of respect, doesn't it? Because how did they not see this coming? Was there nobody in the room that said, "Oh, hold on a minute"? Yeah, obviously not. So I mean, they've shot themselves in the foot, haven't they? Because they're plunkers.
And then there's this Leger poll that came out and saying that most people don't want to separate from Canada.
Yeah, though you see here like the reasons that they might want to, primarily economic, obviously. Yep. But and then the identity question. This is important because that kind of goes both ways. Like they're saying identity is not relevant, but that could be looked at from a federal perspective as being bad, because if usually the reason that you might not want to separate and have an independent country wherever you are in the world is because you're attached to the mother culture, so to speak. But obviously these Albertans don't particularly feel any attachment. And I think this is true in other parts of Canada as well, where the cultural links are a little bit sort of hazy. They're not that strong. And especially when you got America just down there, like Montana over the border, a lot of Albertans feel that they have plenty in common with people in Montana. It's kind of, and it's similar in BC, where a lot of people in BC feel closer to like coastal Washington, don't they, than they do to the likes of Saskatchewan or something like that. So that's a danger for separatism, because if you don't have that, like the glue that binds the country together, if we're the post-national state, as Trudeau said, it's hard to keep it together.
Yeah, the Liberals spent the last 10 years basically saying we shouldn't even celebrate Canada Day, and Trudeau called it a post-national state. It's very hard to have a lot of national pride, and they tried to revive that. That's how they won this election. They wrapped themselves in the flag, but you have to wonder how serious they were about it, other than it serving the purpose they needed at the time.
Yeah, another thing about this poll is it says that quite a lot of people in this poll said that their position on independence could be influenced by the actions of the federal government, one way or the other. So, when I look at that, I think, okay, so there's room here. There's you can play with it and change it, because this poll found just under 30% want to separate. So all you would really need is another sort of 25% or something, let's call it, just to get over the hump. That's not too far, is it? That's not too big of an ask. And if lots of them are open to persuasion, that should be quite scary for the Liberal government, I think.
Yeah, Pierre Poilievre came out yesterday and said that Stephen Guilbeault's comments are a threat to national unity.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear that tone a lot more now, aren't we? We're going to hear that where, just like Quebec's done millions of times. So Quebec's been used in this way so many times in history, hasn't it? But where, like, if a policy proposal is rejected, you're going to hear like, okay, you're endangering national unity. And that's just going to be hammered home, I think. And it might actually land this time. It might make people change their minds.
We talked about Eleanor Sturko, and this is another David Eby crisis that's going on. Under the pressure from Conservatives, David Eby admitted that his police service director violated the NDP whistleblower protection law by referring the safe supply document leak case to an investigative branch, and that I should never have been called for doing my job. And so that is causing a lot of questioning about this whistleblower.
Yeah, he was asked about this at a press conference yesterday. Really awkward, weird press conference. It looked like he was doing it on a ship or something like that. Loads of people making loads of noises behind him. But he was trying to kind of defend. I don't know. He's trying to defend himself. He was like saying, "Oh, I don't control the police. They can do whatever they want." But then he was also saying that it was bad. It's bad that she was being or that the leaker was being investigated. It was a mess. I don't think he knew what he was saying, really.
Yeah, let's move on to some international stuff. And this is a tweet out here from Mario Nafal. Iran offers Trump nuclear deal, no bombs, no games, just sanctions lifted. And there you go. They're talking. They're getting close. I think they're getting close. A lot of that stuff is coming through. We got a clip here from actually Trump's arrival in Qatar here. I think that one might have been Saudi Arabia, actually. I don't know how that got mixed up in there. But the one in Qatar had camels.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see the clip where Trump was like, beautiful, beautiful camels. I appreciate those camels.
Yeah. And I just lost
my... this Iran thing, though, I mean, obviously another deal was signed with Iran, wasn't it? The Obama deal. And the reason that fell to pieces is because they were still pouring money and weapons into Hamas, Hezbollah, the Syrian regime, and all the rest of it. They were still causing chaos all over the place and shooting down passenger jets and things like that. Right. So, it's not just about the nukes, is it? And that's the bit that has to be figured out, really.
So that was the Saudi Arabia welcome. This is the Qatar one. I'm going to play this one. I know this one is Qatar. Apparently, he's the first president to ever visit Qatar.
Really?
That's what they said in the meeting there.
I suppose it is a pretty sort of tiny spot on the map, isn't it? Not necessarily somewhere that you would think to go.
And Qataris have been criticized because they've actually supported some of the Hamas and that in the area, but also there's a big American base in Qatar as well.
Yeah, Qataris are a funny bunch. Very, very, very rich, aren't they? It's gas in their case. They're absolutely just full of money. And they send it all to the Europeans, don't they, nowadays? And also the Chinese. Glorious. Their
buildings were just covered in American flags and that. Let's move on to markets, though. We're trying to get through this here. Stock market. Again, just kind of like doing well, holding over that 40,000 mark. Ever since they broke that China thing, there seems to be more, I guess, investors are back into the market after the Chinese tariffs have been kind of like paused at least. And then gold recovering a bit from being kind of like knocked down. Gold up a little bit this morning, just kind of banging around there. And the same thing for Bitcoin there. Bitcoin holding that $100,000 mark there, and it looks like it wants to challenge the old high there. It's at, actually right now it's at 103. So fairly volatile Bitcoin, but it kind of like trading in a range, right? But it looks like it wants to challenge it. So it's near the point where it wants to challenge its old high. The Canadian dollar. Again, looking for some direction. That talk yesterday definitely doesn't help when you have Carney talking about building a pipeline and then Stephen Guilbeault coming out and saying there's no need for a pipeline. And then he even said that pipeline was at 40%, it's actually at 80%. And then saying that we're at peak oil, so there's nobody even wants to buy oil. I mean, that's what Canada has to sell. If Canada doesn't have energy, the dollar's a lot worse.
Yeah, more than just $1. I mean, everything's worse. You might find yourself eating oatmeal every day.
Some of those crickets that the Liberals couldn't get anybody to eat, they might have to eat them. And
I mean, it is nuts, isn't it? Just to take a step back for a second, that a cabinet minister is saying that about Canada's biggest export industry. Can you imagine any other country on this planet where a senior member of the government would say something like that about the main source of their income? I just can't imagine. Like the Russians, the French, I can't imagine any of them ever doing that.
I would like to see Guilbeault, Jolie, and Carney sit in a room there and just let Guilbeault talk and see what they say, right? Because she's in charge of the economy now, and then there's Carney there. So just let them, the three of them, talk, and then see what like who's saying what. You know, they spend so much energy on the automotive sector, but you know, like side hustles are becoming so popular with millennials and Gen Z in Canada here, because most people need a secondary source of income. 36% of Canadians aged 18 to 44 now have a secondary source of income.
Wow.
There you go. Here's some big news. Kevin O'Leary says that he's selling, he's part of the founders of this WonderFi, and they're going to sell it to Robinhood, which would get Robinhood into Canada. You know, these apps, and we do have a Wealthsimple here in Canada, which allows young people, for sure, young people, to trade fractional shares in companies at small amounts. Like even if the stock's saying, and I'm going to use Tesla as an example, say the stock's trading at, you know, $350 American, or what, $450 Canadian, or yeah, Canadian, you can buy $10 worth of it. You can buy a fractional share, which isn't available on many of the traditional trading platforms. And then usually they have a fee as well. Like if you go to CIBC, you're paying a $7 in and a $7 out fee. So the stock would have to triple if you bought $10 worth of that stock for you to break even. Whereas on an app like Robinhood or Wealthsimple, you can buy, you've done it yourself. You can buy a fractional share, and when you sell it, you get the difference. Like there is no in and out cost, which makes it really attractive for young people, for sure, when they first start investing. You know, I advise young people to open a TFSA and to, I think Questrade also has it. So Questrade, Wealthsimple, and now it looks like Robinhood. It'll be coming to Canada.
I mean, that's bad news for Wealthsimple, isn't it? They'll be upset about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but also competition is what makes us stronger. And then this is somebody putting out there that if Trump gets what he gets done in the Middle East, he's likely up for that Nobel Peace Prize. On Odds Checker, it says that he is actually leading right now for the Nobel Peace Prize. And then
I mean, that's not beyond belief, is it? If you remember that Barack Obama won that prize despite having done literally nothing at all. They just gave it to him. It's hilarious, that, wasn't it?
Elon Musk put out this tweet. Neuralink is partnering with the UAE and the Cleveland Clinic. Like Elon Musk went on that trip. A lot of, again, the biggest businesses in the United States and the biggest businesses in the world were on that trip with Trump. Like lots of them, you know, like some of the most influential people in the world. And they were doing deals. Like they had their pens out, like Mark Carney there. They had their actual pens out and they were inking deals. They were doing big deals. Elon Musk did a bunch of deals in Saudi Arabia, and looks like he's doing one in the UAE. Boeing did a big deal, and you know, Jensen Huang did a big deal with chips with Saudi Arabia. So lots of deals happening for American companies in the Middle East there.
Well, they've got a lot of capital, and they are also trying to plan for post-oil, aren't they? The real post-oil, not Guilbeault's fantasies of it happening in a couple of years' time, but the real end of oil in like 40 or 50 years or whatever. They're trying to figure out a future.
And here's an 0-0 for Canada, Canadian Liberals that like to bloat government, the NDP. The UAE, United Arab Emirates, goes full AI for government. While most countries are still figuring out how to make a PDF editable, the UAE dropped TAM, a sovereign cloud AI-infused real-time government super app, 950 services, no lines, no forms, just predictive AI handling everything from parking tickets and more. Doge on steroids, or AI. and you know what I mean? Like we add, like look at 38 cabinet ministers. We add departments here. And this is how you get rid of departments and stop the bloat of government.
It's amazing because the AI can just do all the work of government, and then these people here who look like government workers, they can just be chess pieces and play chess.
Watch cat videos.
I like the idea of them playing chess because we've got the black and white, haven't we? Sorted,
There you
man.
go.
Or checkers, maybe, if that's what you prefer.
And then in our automotive section here, which is, like one of Canada's leading industries here, we got a clip here from Melanie Joly. No clip? Oh, that was a good clip there. You sure you can't find that? Give him a second there. But Jolie, Honda said it was kiboshing that EV thing, and now Jolie says that they're just delaying it for a couple of years. That was that $15 billion project that's delayed. She says she's on the phone with all the heads of GM and Ford and all that stuff. I don't know, are they answering the phone? Because if they don't drop that EV mandate in Canada, they're going to find there's less and less people to phone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's beyond that, isn't it, as well? It's also figuring out this tariff situation, trying to break down Trump and trying to get... Because, some of his acolytes have come out and they've talked about how they believe in Fortress North America and all that. So that would be bringing Canada back in. But it's just... This thing needs to just run its course, and we need to find out what the end result is going to be. Because if he's adamant about that, it's very hard, isn't it, for Canada's auto industry to survive?
Any
very
luck with
hard.
that? No, we're moving on. We're going to go to our memes. There you go. There you go. Justin Trudeau, the budget will balance itself. Famous last words. And then Mark Carney says there is no budget. So we're going to get that up there for you. There you go. Justin Trudeau in his finest moment there when he was... He couldn't find a razor.
He looked like Guy Fawkes. He looked like a 17th century nobleman.
He couldn't find a razor blade or a pair of scissors.
That just seemed very performative. I don't really like that word, but it's the only word I can think to adequately describe what was going on there. Because it was like, oh yeah, we're all indoors, aren't we, guys? So it's like, look, my hair's long and I've got my little 17th century beard out. Yeah. Very, very funny times to reflect on. That's about the time that he said, speaking moistly, isn't it? His famous phrase.
Then we have the famous meme here, and this is day one of Carney's cabinet. No affordability issue in Canadian housing, no new pipelines, we have enough, and the federal budget, we don't need one. Why would we?
That picture is so funny, isn't it?
That's going to be the Canadian meme of the year. It's going to go down in history as one of the best memes in Canadian history.
It's all about his face, isn't it? He's just like, it's brilliant.
This one from the Toronto Star there is actually a good competition for it. We might see this one over and over again. New cabinet.
Guilbeault there looking very, very cool and relaxed.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you got?
I'm not sure what LeBlanc is doing there. I think he's been listening to Kanye West's new song.
Yeah. I can't see it, but you can? Or what's going on? There we go. There we go. Some technical difficulties. We don't get any government funding, so we have to kind of fight through this. There you go. Yeah, no... the all-new cabinet. I've seen a few of those out there. And then this one's good. It sounds like Loblaws is saying that grocery prices might go up. Elbows up, prices up, choices down. There you go.
Is that supposed to be Mark Carney there as well? That's quite funny,
that looks like an AI-generated one. And then this one is good. This is Furious Democrats. There's Schumer there. Demand to know who's responsible for coming up Biden's decline. There's a lot coming out on that. There is so much coming out on that. There's some responsibility that there needs to be like an investigation into that because there's so much coming out on that. It looks pretty bad from what came out of Jake Tapper's book there. He wrote that with Alex. I can't remember the other guy's name. Alex something.
Very shocking, isn't it? The idea that even cabinet ministers didn't have access to Biden. They had to brief unelected aides and then just hope that those aides briefed Biden. That's not how the American presidency is supposed to work.
So the question is, who was actually running the country at the time? Like, who was running it? I mean, those are the questions that need to be answered.
CNN themselves came out and said that it suggests that. Oh no, actually, it wasn't CNN. It was somebody that they interviewed off the record. Said those aides didn't necessarily make the decisions, but they decided what Biden was presented with to make the decision. So, I mean, obviously, that's what Wormtongue does, isn't it? In Lord of the Rings, quite easy to just present certain facts and omit others, and then you get the decision that you want, as every sort of 10-year-old knows when they try and get their parents to give them something.
I think lots of people higher up in the Democratic Party likely knew what was going on and were involved in those decisions. Yeah, I don't think it was.
How could they not be? How could they not be? I mean, it was obvious. It was obvious to you and me. Look at watching on YouTube videos that Joe Biden was clearly not there in the head. I mean, they must have known, the people who were actually there with him.
There was that one meeting where Barack Obama was in the White House with Joe Biden in the room. Everybody was surrounding Barack Obama, and Joe Biden was kind of wandering around in that room by himself. And it was a very telling moment.
Pitiable.
And it was a very telling moment. There was Joe Biden wandering around, the president of the United States, wandering around the room by himself, and Barack Obama comes in like Mick Jagger, and he has the attention of everybody. That's a very telling moment.
Isn't that also the one where he tried to get Obama's attention, and Obama wasn't having it? He didn't even turn around. Yeah. I think it was that occasion, wasn't it? Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was very pitiable, wasn't it? I mean, Joe Biden's a bit of a bruiser anyway. He's a bit of a greaseball his entire career. He's not a very admirable man, I don't think. But it was still quite pitiable to see the state that he'd fallen into, you know. And there he is still doing interviews. He did an interview with the BBC recently, didn't he? And he's just as incoherent as ever.
The question is, and I think this is the question that needs to be answered, is the media. Where was the media in this? And then, you know, when people called it out, Jake Tapper attacked people like Laura Trump and stuff like that. And same as our national media here in Canada. Where were they? You know, you could see with your own eyes. And you were called either, even here, I was, you know, when I questioned it, I was called a MAGA supporter and a Trumpist, and just because you question stuff with your own
conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, all those things. We have to question the media, including our national media. Like even during this election, until we get Bill C-18 repealed, we don't have a free and independent press here in Canada. We have media that is living off the handouts of the Liberal government. You can't even say the government, because it's one party of the government that is offering money to media to buy. And until we get Bill C-18 repealed and zero funding for media outlets, will we get a free and independent media? And I think that's the key thing. Like, we need a free and independent media that holds power accountable, and they're not holding power accountable.
It's also a cultural thing, though, isn't it? And look back at COVID. Look at the way that people just swallowed the nonsense. You know, look at the way that people seem to willingly accept that it was some kind of racist slur to suggest that the COVID virus had leaked out of the Virology Institute in Wuhan, which was kind of 2 and 2 equals 4. It was kind of obvious that might have happened, but you were supposed to feel almost like you were some sort of raging Japanese imperialist or something going to attack the Chinese if you suggested that, even though it was, like I say, kind of obvious. And now, of course, that's all washed away and forgotten about. But at the time, you're supposed to feel bad about it. And other questions, like, we had this virus and we were being told that it was extraordinarily deadly and it could kind of really kill like a huge proportion of the population. It was like all hands on deck. And then people would say, so why don't we close the borders? And then you were told in that situation that you were somehow like beyond the pale, some kind of racist, until they closed the borders a month later or whatever. It's like, I think we've seen this ritual again and again and again, and it did happen with the Biden thing. And it's kind of linked to social embarrassment, isn't it? And it's kind of like embarrassment is a weapon that they use. It's like, oh my God, like, how dare you hold such a low status opinion? Like that, the idea that Biden's not all there in the head. Fast forward a couple of years, God, yeah, Biden, he's really not there in the head, is he? It's just, it's the kind of thing that makes you ashamed of the species, I think. And that's how I feel now talking about it. We're an independent media outlet, and we did do stories on the truckers and that stuff that had Okanagan ties. And we did do stories that, you know, we interviewed fired healthcare workers, and we got so much hate mail for that. And even right now, you and I calling out some of the stuff of the Liberal policies, there's so many people right now that are like, I don't know if they work for the Liberal government or what they do, but they don't even want to listen. They don't even want to listen because the job of media is to hold power accountable. The Liberals happen to be in power. You know, that's who's in power. So that's who we're supposed to hold accountable. And also the job of the media is to be skeptical of official narratives and, you know, official pronouncements and all the rest of it. It's not the job of the media to enforce orthodoxy, which is what we see so often from our excellent friends at the CBC, whose job, it seems to me, is basically to maintain orthodoxy and maintain the status quo position on whatever subject is under discussion. And then that's the key point. Again, Bill C-18 needs to be repealed, and we need to stop funding journalism in Canada by the government. That's the only way you're going to get a free and independent media. And I mean, that is so key. And then media needs to hold power accountable. That's the job. So the people on here, like even commenting with us, saying, you know, like what we are and what we aren't, the job is to hold power accountable. We're supposed to criticize. That's the role of media, to be critical, not to be parroting the narrative. Like during COVID, how many media outlets, national media outlets on either side of the border, were actually pushing back against the narrative? Indeed. But that's the job, you know. You're supposed to be an invigilator. You're supposed to be a skeptic. But so many people don't have that. You know, that's a very rare trait generally anyway, in all walks of life. But unfortunately, it's also rare in journalism now. People just don't think like that anymore. They don't think to question everything, question the sort of the basics, the fundamentals, and try and like look at things from different angles. They just don't do that. And, you know, earlier on when I was slagging off the failures that have been appointed to the cabinet, lots of people, I'd say the majority of people, including in the press, would be thinking that they hear me say that and be like, what are you talking about? Melanie Joly went to Oxford University and she's been a minister for many years, as if that means that therefore she's good at what she does because she managed to go to a certain university and has succeeded in obtaining jobs, but still has nothing to show for her time in those jobs or her time at that university. But, you know, they don't think of it that way. That's another thing, though, credentialist thinking, that way of like just looking at somebody's credentials and being like, all right, well, you're great. The same happened with Mark Carney. Mark Carney must be the first or one of the first politicians to be elected purely on his resume, you know, rather than what he's actually done, the actual results. But, you know, now I'm waffling. There you go. That's we'll kind of cut it off there. That's our show for today. It's Thursday, May 15th. If you care about Canadian democracy or democracy in general, you should be voicing your concerns about Bill C-18 and your ability to see news, and voicing your concerns about funding of media in Canada, and asking media to stand on its own, and also allowing media to have the voice that they deserve and that they earned by repealing Bill C-18. With that said, we do thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now.